Let me tell you something. MLB. The show 26 ratings just dropped, and I cannot sit here and pretend everything is fine. Because it's not. Some of these ratings for Blue Jays players? Absolutely cooked. And I'm going to break every single one of them down right now, tell you who they got right, who they disrespected, and why at least two of these decisions make zero sense when you actually look at the numbers. Let's get into it. Starting with the guy everyone wants to talk about first. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., ranked number 1 among all first basemen, 88 overall. And honestly, I don't have a problem with this. I know some of you are going to come into the comments and say Vladdy deserves higher, and I get it, I really do. But let's be real about what 2025 looked like for him during the regular season. It was good. It wasn't elite. It wasn't MVP level. It was a solid Vladimir Guerrero Jr. season, which by definition is still better than most players in baseball. But it wasn't the kind of year that should put him in the top 10 overall in the entire game. So an 88 makes sense when you frame it that way. But here's where it gets interesting. That 88 puts him in the same company as Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, and Cody Bellinger. And the reason the show is apparently ranking those guys at the same level or above Vladdy has a lot to do with defense. The developers seem to be weighting defensive metrics pretty heavily this year, and those guys bring something to the table defensively that Guerrero doesn't. Fair enough in theory. But I do think there's an argument to be made that Vladdy's postseason should have pushed that number up, because what he did in October 2025 was genuinely historic. 18 games, slash line of 397, 494, 795, OPS of 1.289, 8 home runs, 15 RBIs, 14 walks, and only 7 strikeouts. His teammate, Ernie Clement, set the all-time record with 30 postseason hits, and Guerrero was right behind him with 29. That's not a good postseason. That's one of the best postseasons anyone has ever had. And if the show is going to factor in postseason performance for any player, which I think is a totally valid thing to do, then Vladdy at an 88 might actually be a little low. But overall, I'll take it. First among first basemen is where he belongs. Now Alejandro Kirk, at 82 overall, ranked 4th among catchers. This is another one I think they nailed. When you start talking about catchers who can actually hit and field at a high level, the list gets very short very fast. Cal Raleigh is number 1 at 90, and I don't think anyone's arguing with that. Will Smith at 85 is 2, William Contreras at 83 is 3, and then Kirk comes in at 82. He's tied with Shea Langeliers at 5, and he's ahead of guys like Drake Baldwin, Adley Rutschman, Gabriel Moreno, Yainer Diaz, and Hunter Goodman. That is a very, very good group of players to be ranked above, and Kirk, sitting inside the top 70 players overall in the entire game, tells you that the developers genuinely understand how valuable he is. A .282 average, 348 on base, 15 home runs, plus 9 defensive runs saved. Top 70 in the whole game is exactly where Alejandro Kirk should be. No complaints here. Now let's talk about Dalton Varsho, because this one is starting to make my eye twitch a little. He's ranked 10th among outfielders with a 78 overall. And look, he only played 71 games in 2025 because of injury, so I understand why the number isn't higher. When you only play half a season, developers are going to penalize that. That part I get. But when you look at who's ranked ahead of him, the logic starts to fall apart pretty quickly. Andy Pages from the Dodgers is 6th at an 82. Ceddanne Rafaela of the Red Sox is 7th at an 80. Michael Harris II from Atlanta is 8th at a 79. Brenton Doyle from Colorado is 9th at a 79. All of them ranked ahead of Varsho. And if you're someone who actually watches baseball and pays attention to what these guys produce, that list should raise some serious eyebrows. Varsho has more career WAR than every single one of those players. Now yes, he's also played more games than most of them, so you can't just throw that number around without context. But even adjusting for the fact that he only played 71 games in 2025, his 2.8 BWAR for the season still absolutely demolishes Brenton Doyle's 0.1. That's not a typo. Brenton Doyle was worth 0.1 wins above replacement in 2025, and he's still rated higher than Varsho. And defensively, Varsho is one of the best gloves at the position in baseball. Not one of the best on his team, one of the best in the entire league. The fact that he's sitting at 10th with a 78 overall when some of these other guys are rated higher is genuinely puzzling, and I think the injury-shortened season hurt him more than it should have in the ratings model that San Diego Studio is using. Now here is where I stop giving the developers any benefit of the doubt, because Kevin Gausman not cracking the top 10 starting pitchers is something I actually cannot explain. He's got an 83 overall, which isn't embarrassing, but the fact that guys like Blake Snell and Jacob deGrom are ranked above him, come on, let me give you the numbers so this isn't just me ranting. In 2025, Gausman pitched 193 innings. He had 189 strikeouts. His ERA was 3.59. He finished third in BBWAR among starting pitchers with a 3.8, just behind Chris Sale at 4.0 and Brian Wu at 4.2. He led the entire group in innings pitched and in starts. And then there's Blake Snell, who is ranked 8th overall among starters at an 87, rated higher than Gausman. Blake Snell made 11 starts in 2025, 11. Gausman led in starts and Snell made 11, and somehow Snell's sitting at an 87 while Gausman is on the outside looking in. That doesn't track. And Jacob deGrom is number 10 at an 86. I love deGrom when he's healthy, everyone does, but he's been hurt more than he's been on the mound the last few years. At what point does availability start factoring into these ratings? And then you want to bring up the postseason argument again, because I think it's relevant. Earlier we talked about how Vladdy's historic October might justify bumping his rating up. Well, the same logic should absolutely apply to Gausman. The Blue Jays made a deep playoff run in 2025, and Gausman was a big reason why. If postseason performance matters for hitters, it has to matter for pitchers too. You can't selectively apply that argument. Gausman deserved better than this. Now on the bright side, because I don't want this whole video to just be me complaining, George Springer and Ernie Clement both got some love, and I think they both earned it. Springer is ranked 7th among right fielders at an 83 overall, tied with Jackson Chourio and Brent Rooker. He led the Blue Jays with 32 home runs in 2025 and took home a Silver Slugger. Even though he did most of his damage as a DH, the game slotted him into the right field rankings and gave him a number that reflects what he actually did. I think 83 is fair for a guy his age who's still putting up those kinds of power numbers. And Ernie Clement, at 79 overall, ranked 8th among second basemen. He's tied with Tommy Edman and sitting ahead of Ozzie Albies and Brandon Lowe, who are both at 78. Clement was nominated for not 1, but 2 Gold Gloves this past season, and he's the all-time leader in postseason hits with 30. The fact that he's inside the top 10 at his position is well-deserved recognition for a guy who a lot of people outside of Toronto didn't even know 3 years ago. So to summarize, Vladdy at number 1 first baseman, fine. Kirk at 4th catcher, great. Springer and Clement both getting recognized, absolutely warranted. Varsho at 10th and Gausman not making the top 10? Both of those decisions leave a lot to be desired when you look at what the actual numbers say. The show is a great game, and the ratings process is genuinely complicated, but if you're going to rank Brenton Doyle above Dalton Varsho and put Blake Snell above Kevin Gausman, you're going to hear about it. And now you have. Drop your thoughts in the comments, let me know which rating bothered you the most, and I'll see you in the next one.